Tactard Ted, September 22nd. How's it going, folks? Wow, what changes we've seen in the last 24 hours. After Russia talks about mobilization and referendums, suddenly Macron is in a hurry to resume negotiations. Zelensky is panically talking about negotiations. But then out the other side of Zelensky's mouth comes, we will regain all of our territories. No, he wants to negotiate with the West. He's not interested in negotiating with the Russians. And it's interesting that the West wants to negotiate with the Russians. Yeah, should have negotiated with him back in December of 2020. You didn't want to do that. And now it's a little late. And everybody's pissing their pants because the number of Russian troops is about to double. In fact, more than double. The call put 300,000 reservists, which is being called conscription by some in the media, and it's not. It's equivalent to what we did by calling up National Guard and Army Reserve units to go fight in Afghanistan and Iraq over the last 20 fucking years. So there's nothing new, there's nothing different. It's the same sort of shit we did, and nobody was calling it conscription or drafting. Now there will be some guys who are not active reservists, who are former military in certain specialties, that will be recalled to service. Over here, that's called being recalled. Our media is calling it a draft over there. 6 one, half a dozen the other. It would have been interesting if some of the units here, when they got called up, if our media tried to say it was conscription, because it's not. I can remember locally when a unit of the 29th Light Infantry Division got called up. There was one little weak, incompetent Bowling Green pussy, that's what the acronym for WIMP stands for, who decided he wasn't going. He had a business selling real estate, and he decided he wasn't going. No, he only signed up for the college. He wasn't interested in doing all that icky army shit that he signed his name on the line to do. And interestingly enough, he was booted out of the Army and got to spend his time in Fort Living Room instead of Fort Leavenworth. Because to be honest, if I'm sorry, dude, you signed your name on the line, you took an oath, you don't want to deal with it, then fine. You go to jail for a while, get a felony, don't be allowed to vote, don't be allowed to own firearms, just fine. If you're willing to take your shit that insignificantly, then you should get treated like that. Sorry, that's just the way that goes. But now all of a sudden people are wanting to negotiate. Negotiations. Isn't it sad? You have to find out your shit is weak to want to negotiate. I'm not sure who couldn't see the writing on the wall here. Whoever it was in the White House, the Pentagon, NATO, Brussels, Paris, London, all those folks who could not see the writing on the wall here prior to this need to go. They need to go. They need to be done. Intelligence communities. Dude, if you weren't able to see that the army that is now in Russia is not the Soviet army, then you need your fucking head adjusted. We need to go back to collecting intelligence. And I think we're going to see, unfortunately, an escalation that we've never had before. We're going to see some of the points of SDI working in the other direction. Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars for you folks. Everybody, when they talk about SDI, they talk about the ability to destroy ICBMs in flight. there is also another component that people don't talk about as much, and that is the component of satellites hunting satellites. In other words, the idea was that American intelligence satellites could basically destroy Soviet intelligence satellites. Now, why would I bring this up? Well, it was interesting. Sergei Shoigu, who is the head of the military in the Russian Federation, you probably don't know his name. See him every year at the 9 May parade for Victory Day, victory over fascism. Shoigu mentioned that there are 70 satellites actively working, NATO satellites, that are actively working to gather intelligence over Ukraine. And he knows what satellites and knows where they're at. So, what happens if Russia decides to take out satellites? That's not your territory, that's space. How does that work? Now, as an American, I'd like to say, well, hell yeah, you can't do that. That's ours. Okay, it's ours, but it's up there. It's not here. So does that mean that a piece of American property, no matter where it is, no matter what it's doing, that's unmanned, is somehow protected by the United States? I think those are issues, unfortunately, I think that we're going to have to address in the near future. Because I will tell you, I don't think that Shoigu mentioned this off the cuff. I'm pretty sure there was a veiled hint of, we know who you are, we know what you're doing, and we can shut you down if we want. That's how I perceived it. Of course, I'm sure that Western media, when they translated it, didn't translate well, or they omitted it. Not sure if that made it into the Western narrative. I've been too busy to look at the Western narrative lately. There have been too many interesting things happening elsewhere. But isn't it interesting that it had to get to this? Nobody could have understood that when Russia put in a special military operation, a low number of troops with basically they tied one hand around their testicles in the fighting of this war. I don't think anybody ever understood that they might just loosen that hand up and then they got two free hands. And I don't think the West ever totally appreciated that. I don't think there's been a intelligence failure like this since the Germans invaded the Soviet Union. They felt that everything would collapse within a couple of weeks. And it didn't. And the Russians have been running out of ammunition since week number 3, been running out of manpower, laughingly enough, because they're about to double their manpower, or actually more than double. And there's been no admission in the Western press or the intelligence community, oh, we got it wrong. No, they're just going to keep lying to you. They're going to pump you up. This isn't so much unlike the Nazis in April 45. We're still winning while Soviet troops are steadily making progress and entering Berlin. We're going to win. No, you're not. And you're not going to be around to admit that you were full of shit, you know? But somehow we've gotten to this point, and now everybody's shitting their pants. Everybody's losing their shit. I want to know what kind of amateurs we have at the State Department. I want to know what kind of amateurs we have at the Pentagon. I know what kind of amateur we have in the White House and in the administration. All the Obama retreads who began this conflict. And I just can't believe that we allowed our military to pass for what it is now. And don't get me wrong, I'm not hoping for Ukraine to win. I'm not. I look very much forward to when the war is over and the people of Donbass can look for their own security. But as an American, I'm really pissed off that the military, our intelligence services, and the State Department can't seem to get it fucking right. They can't seem to be doing their job. They can't seem to do what we pay them a lot of fucking money to do. And I think there are a lot of folks who've been shamed out of government for telling the truth, who've been shamed out of government for exposing the bullshit. Those folks are the folks that need to be back and in charge, not these laughable morons who provide propaganda and lip service more than they do actual intelligence. A State Department that knows zero about diplomacy. A State Department that is good at causing wars, not avoiding them. This is all coming home to roost, and it's coming home very soon. I guess the only positive that I see, massively positive for the West, which the West is too stupid to realize it, is the influx of troops may hasten the defeat of Ukraine. And if that happens, then that gives an opportunity for the EU to mend its ways, apologize to Russia, apologize to a lot, and start having gas flow again at a regular interval. And stop playing silly fucking games that are cutting your own throat. Nobody told the EU to become dependent on Russian energy. But the EU, since the end of World War II, Europe has got this idea that the USA is going to come to their aid. We don't have the infrastructure to supply them with enough natural gas. The green agenda, all this bullshit about environmentalist nonsense that is just total bullshit, this has helped destroy the EU. Dependence on the United States has helped to destroy the EU. A general arrogance when it comes to dealing with Russia has helped to destroy the EU. And they're in a bad situation that I don't even think they realize. The people are going to rise up. They're not going to put up with being cold and hungry all winter long. They're not. And they're going to suddenly realize that their own government has placed the interest of the most corrupt country in Europe above the interest of their own people. And that's not a good thing, folks. So anyhow, folks, you all take care. Something more to stew on. I'll talk to you later. Bye.